Hey guys, this is Watches with Oliver. We've got something good for you guys today. I've got my guest here, Joe. He is what I call him, Mr. Devil Diver. His specialty is in Bulova and Caravelle, but mainly collecting Bulova and the Devil Diver lineup. So we have here today a nice selection of oceanographers, but we're here to talk about our most recent launch that Bulova has done. But before we do that, we're going to talk with Joe here, and he's going to give us a little history on the oceanographer lineup.
Thank you for having me. So the line starts in 1968, and it's the oceanographer. They didn't quite have a name set up, and so there was a little bit of a weirdness to it. So it's your standard sort of your black dial. It's this one here. So black dial with these sort of cylindrical markers around the outside, and that's sort of the hallmark of like the OG Devil Diver that was released. And so that was the Oceanographer G. 1969. They changed the dial layout and they throw Oceanographer onto the dial. So prior to that, it was just kind of called a Snorkel. 1971, they released a orange version with a day date, and that's a limited 1-year run. And then the whole line kind of stops in about 74, 75. Flash forward to 2018, Analog Shift does a poll with the watch fam, essentially. It's like, if Bulova was going to re-release something, what would it be? Would it be the Oceanographer G? Would it be the Deep Sea A, the surfboard, or would it be the parking meter, which they have all since released all of them? But the black dial was the watch that just dropped, and everybody loved it. It was a great reissue. They also then decided to do a limited edition of 666 pieces of the orange. So the new version that they came out with, instead of having a Swiss movement, had a Miyota movement. Larger case size, went from about 38 millimeters to 44 millimeters. So it's a bigger watch. However, as you know, because you've tried on mine, it wears really well because the proportions are just so good. The case itself is really slim. It's a very short lug to lug. The bracelet itself just drapes straight down. They did that, and they did a couple different colorways. There's a really popular green version. There's a variation of blue dials. I've got one with a blue and a yellow bezel, so it's sort of a Ukraine color. There's an orange a 15-minute mark. And then after that, there was a slimmed down version that was available in Europe. So same black dial, but there was a black bezel and then a red bezel. And the case profile was almost identical. Come to maybe 2 years ago, is when they re-released a orange dial for the US market, but the case profile has changed a little bit. The thicker case, at least down by the lugs, but still with that same short lug to lug, and it's a really nice watch. They all wear really well. They're comfortable. The bracelets are good. They take straps, NATO strap, 2-piece strap, no leather. Everything else about it works out pretty darn well. They're great watches. They're comfortable. They're iconic. They're distinctive. They're really easy to read. Sector dial is a hallmark. These cylindrical, fully loomed tips, for lack of a better term. Most of the watches, every iteration will have a 15-minute section on the dial as well, help with dive timing. And sometimes it's a unidirectional bezel. Sometimes it's a bi-directional bezel, and it depends a little bit. It also depends a little bit on how old the watch is and if the bezel's been replaced or changed, because then the click spring is gone. You're kind of stuck. But flash forward to recently, like this year, and there is a new version. It's the GMT. So it's using the new Miyota GMT movement. There are 4 iterations currently. So this one that I have is the Loom, also called the Stormtrooper, and it's a sort of a monochromatic black and white dial, black and white bezel, but it still has the 15-minute track, which is a nice addition because there's 3 other versions. There's a green that's available in Europe. There's a Pepsi, and then there's a root beer with a gold DVD case. Those all have like a day-night bezel. Then this one has the traditional dive bezel. They moved the 24-hour track in between the hour markers, and so it ends up looking a little bit more like a roulette gate wheel. It's really kind of cool. And then it's got the GMT hand, the GMT functionality.
Mm-hmm.
The full dial also on this one, the full dial glows in low light. It's really amazingly bright. It's a really cool package, really cool watch. So that's kind of where we're at, you know?
Yeah, the one thing interesting that you noted about was that the Stormtrooper edition, if we're gonna call it that, it has this coating on it. It's unlike the other cases that the Oceanographer line has. It's coated with makes it look like gunmetal.
It's sort of a PVD. They're calling it sort of a gunmetal color. It's sort of in between like a gray and a brown. And it's just that extra bit of protection on the outside, because the cases and all the rest of them were high polished.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little bit of brushing on some. This one I had Cerakoted into black just because. And it's it's a neat little color treatment. I don't know if Bulova picked up on that and decided to make their own changes or not. I can't really say, but it's a nice option to have. And you can have that color treated case. You can have some changes to it, because rather than just being the same brush. The root beer has a gold sort of PVD. The green dial version in Europe has supposed to have a similar case, and it comes on a bracelet. This one comes on a rubber strap, real thick, sort of gray rubber, stiff, but I mean it works. It's also got the quick release, so you can change out straps, and almost any nylon strap you're going to throw on these is going to be excellent. Tropics work really well. FKM rubber works really well. NATO's canvas, just no leather.
Just no leather. So yeah, one of Joe's pet peeves are divers.
No leather.
With leather, and I'm indifferent. Maybe if the leather was waterproof. Right?
You got to take a stand, man. You got to take a stand. Now there are some of the Bulova and Accutron dive watches would come on shark skin. I've got it.
Yeah, you got it.
I've got one on sharks. I've got the shark skin, but I also have that one on a faded gray Tropic. Just because no leather. No leather.
But that was straight from the line book, right?
It was straight from the line book. That's what it came with. That's the only one though. Everything else was bracelet or Tropic.
It's legitimate, but in your world, you just don't prefer that.
It's my personal preference. You gotta stand for something. I stand for that.
So it's interesting because the new GMTs also, the case size is kind of closer to.
Yeah, it's a 41, 41 side to side dial, and it's a nice size. The 44 that was the original reissue size, it still wears really well.
Right.
It's a much smaller than you would expect. And it's again like we were talking about. It's just so straight down.
Yeah, that lug to lug.
It drops so, and just with any bracelet. Now, when you put it onto, say, like a standard NATO, it ends up sitting up a little bit high.
Sure.
But when you're looking at it from here, you don't notice. But the smaller case size, the 41 millimeter case size, it's kind of a happy medium. This is the new Miyota movement, one of their 9000 series.
Yep.
And they released a GMT that's more of a dress style watch, and it's bigger. It's a much bigger. I think it's like 44.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and if you got a smaller wrist, it's a big watch.
Yeah.
But looking at that watch, you can see that the date window is inside the hour marker, which immediately, and I looked at that and it's like, okay, they could make it smaller. They could absolutely make it smaller, which is exactly what they did with this. And I can't argue with this watch at all.
Yeah.
I've been wearing it for a week. It's supposed to go back.
I mean, as someone who has smaller wrists on my end, the Oceanographer lineup for me, especially going around in 44 millimeters, it wears a bit big, right?
Yeah.
I used to have a Lunar Pilot that used to be 45. That was really big. You could really feel the help. But when I tried out Joe's 41, that one wore just within line of my wrist. I think I'm about like 6.25, maybe 6.5 wrists. I've got small wrists. And it's hard for me to find watches, especially nowadays, because the trend is, towards that bigger
It's like that weird sweet spot that everybody's like is like 40 and above. And so I know that like you've trended towards vintage, and it's also something like for me personally, I like that sub 40 size. Like I can wear larger. I'm over 7, but I don't like it. It doesn't appeal to me that much. And like the Lunar Pilot was too big for me also. So I mean, it's a weird thing. Like we've talked about this a lot. You got to get the watch. Right. You got to put it on. Right. And so I was really excited when Bulova dropped this one, because I had a good feeling that it was going to be pretty much what I thought it was, because I knew, just looking at it, I knew that it was similar to the orange dial case. It would have to be. Right. Just be a question of how much thicker it was, because it's got the GMT. And it doesn't wear that much differently. I mean, you don't notice that if it's taller at all. I haven't even found out. I haven't tried calibrating on it, so I don't know. Because I don't care. Yeah. I really don't care.
It fits well.
It fits really well. It wears comfortably. I really can't argue about this one. I think they've really knocked it out of the park with this watch.
Yeah, no, Bulova is doing some great things. This year they released that Jetstar lineup earlier this year, and then they released these GMTs. It's interesting too, the movement, since it's using that new Miyota movement, it beats at 28,800 right now? Yeah. Yeah, so it's a high beat rate movement, which their other lineups are just 21,000.
Yeah.
VPH. So they're a bit slower, but I mean this one, it's pretty much a top of the line movement that they've released. That's not really found in any of their other watches.
It's not. Yeah, it's a whole new release for them. It's a citizen movement. I mean, let's be honest. But Bulova got to use it first, and now you can buy that. You see micro brands are throwing out some stuff, and all of them were immediately smaller. I'm like, okay, they're gonna have to go that way. Right. This to me is like the perfect vacation watch. Yeah. I love the idea of sitting on a beach someplace tropical and looking at my watch and realizing like, oh, I should be teaching third period right now, and I'm gonna have another cocktail instead. So for me, it's ideal. I think that the colorways work incredibly well. I'm thrilled.
I do like this setup because the bezel, the Oceanographer lineup was a diver lineup, right? So the bezel still has the timing bezel.
It's a dual watch.
Inside, it still has a 24-hour markers on it. Unlike the other versions of this watch, it has a 24-hour time zone on the outside, but there's no timing bezel. Yeah. There's no,
right.
There's no timing.
This is still a watch you can use for its original function. Right. And know what time it is at all.
Right, exactly. So I do prefer that. I wish maybe they will roll that out with the other color lineups. I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see what they do. I could see there being a black dial version. I could see there being maybe a Coke colorway. There's a ton of options in terms of what's available for this watch, what the iterations could be, because it's a really interesting palette that they can, because the format just works so well.
Right, and I was gonna say, because it's monochromatic, you can color it up and put any color strap on it, and it'll still look good.
Yeah, it works well
because of the black and white theme.
I mean, I haven't even thrown colored straps on it. I've got I had it on a glow in the dark strap.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
which is.
I was like, wait a minute.
It's really cool.
That's glow in the dark strap. It's really
cool.
Yeah.
I've got that. I had it on a gray strap. I put it on a black strap. I've got a bunch of colored ones, and so like that's kind of my next thing. And it's a 20 millimeter lug. So your options are
they're unlimited. You can put on anything on. Yeah. If there were any buts about this watch,
the only drawbacks for me personally, the strap itself is a little thick. It's thick and it's kind of stiff. I mean, it's curved, it's shaped, but it's a little bit weird. The other thing too, like I had it on other straps, and I put this one back on yesterday. And the rubber holds so well that I didn't notice that the pins weren't set.
Oh, okay.
And I did a sharp motion and walked the whole thing, and luckily it's a nice sapphire crystal, so no problems. Also internal cyclops as well, because that's that's part of the sort of the standard that Bulova had done forever, the internal cyclops rather than one.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Most of, not even in their diver lineup, their other lineups had that internal cyclops.
Yeah, and it's a little nice touch because you have to think on anything. It's not gonna
you're not gonna shoot out. And I've heard some people, they don't like that cyclops. I recall another person, they were like, it looks like there's some growth on the crystal. That's what they said. I was like, I mean, that was just that's how they do it.
It's an opinion. It's an opinion. I prefer it this way because it's a whole lot easier to clean.
Sure.
I don't get anything caught on it.
Sure. And I mean, that's just Bulova. I mean, they've always done it internally, as far as I've known. And that's just one of their hallmarks. You know, the markers, same thing. The Oceanographer lineup. I've never seen any other watch manufacturer really make their hour markers. I mean, you know, that 70s look, which highly raised up hour markers, and then the lume glows inside them. That's like it's a really striking thing. If you haven't seen one before, but it's worth checking out just to see and you know, try one on. You gotta put it on the wrist because it's not a Rolex homage. It's not. It's its own thing. Yeah.
And that I appreciate that. I like the aesthetic, and I mean, as you can see, I've got one of each.
Yeah.
From just about every iteration.
Yeah. All the color schemes are here. I mean, Bulova is doing some great things this year. You know, we are in September into October. Do you think are there going to be any other
for this year? There's not. I don't think there's that much more that's coming. The kicker is going to be 2025 as an anniversary year.
That's right.
And so I know that there's stuff that's gearing up towards that. I don't know what it is yet, but I know that their design window is about 18 months, which means it's done.
Yeah.
It's sitting someplace.
Right.
They're finishing it up because the Jetstar line, and those are really cool watches with that precisionist movement.
Absolutely.
There's a couple of the Mark Anthony releases. There's the Rat Pack releases. There's some other new stuff in like the sort of their dress lines. Other pieces. The Frank Lloyd Wright stuff is also really cool. And then there's the Accutron reissues.
Yeah.
And the Red Bar electrostatic.
That one just came out.
There's some really interesting stuff. So
I mean,
for the next 18 months, it's going to be fascinating. Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty exciting, especially for a large manufacturer. There's a lot that goes into it. I think that people may not realize, especially nowadays, to release a watch that can be of significance to people. Right?
Yeah.
That's, especially in today, people are just marketed left and right with things.
Well, and when you're looking at what the space is, this is like sort of a sub $1,000, that 1,500 to 300, and kind of that's the range.
Right.
And it's a crowded space. There's a lot of competition.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so how do you differentiate? How do you stand out? Bulova's interesting because they have a history.
Yes.
That's stretching back 150 years. So there's a lot to mine in that. And when you start taking a look at what have they done throughout that history, there's a lot of stuff. So what's going to happen in the next year? I don't know. It's gonna be fun.
But it's exciting.
It's gonna be fun.
It's exciting because they got this refocus, into putting Bulova out there again and representing the name. I mean, it's always been an American brand.
It has been. They're now housed in the Empire State Building. They got the museum.
They got a museum, which I would love to go.
I would do that someday.
Seeing pictures, seeing video. I mean, it looks pretty cool. Now, the pricing of the GMTs, they're around
$1,195, $1,200.
Yeah. Okay.
What I'm seeing on the retail space is there's discounts to be had.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to find it for probably less than that. You can be at the Bulova's website. I know there's a couple of discounts available there. You can also find them in European websites as well. And so it's kind of a question of what it is you want to do.
Right. And that's really competitive pricing too for what you get.
For a true traveler GMT. Yeah. Because you set the watch, and the 24-hour hand moves with it, but then you set the hour hand. You can set that independently. You do a 12-hour rotation, and it will change the date. And so it's a really intuitive. There's not a whole lot to the move. The move is very simple and very elegantly made.
Yeah.
And so just as a traveling watch, I'm done. This is it.
It would be a one-stop shop if
Pretty
you needed a diver and a GMT all in one.
Pretty much.
Right?
Yep.
Wow, that's amazing. We will definitely, take a look at these later on more in depth. I'm pretty excited to be starting this with Joe and our other individual, Mike, who does, what was the I keep thinking of his name, 120. That's not his name. The podcast. It's Springbar Podcast. So Mike, Joe, and Casey. Occasionally they will do a podcast. If you guys haven't seen it, what's the handler?
The Springbar Podcast on Instagram. You can find us on Spotify and on YouTube.
Okay, perfect. And then so your Instagram name is
Watch Taylor Youth, UPH.
Alright.
You can find me there.
We'll have that down below. And then Mike is at 120 clicks.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
And I'm at Watching with Oliver, which is why you're here watching this. So, anything else about the
I love it.
GMT?
I'm happy. This is a sample. They might have to come find me. I think I'm moving.
A working
A working sample. I'm gonna move, and so they won't. I'll have to take advantage of the GMT time, wherever time zone I go to.
I've been playing around with, for a long time about getting an oceanographer.
Yeah.
I've sent you links, sent you pictures,
Yeah.
and then this came out, and I'm like, this might be that one stop. Because I like the movement, I like the oceanographer lineup, but it's also a GMT. This might just be a one-stop watch.
It's a good starting point.
Yeah.
It's definitely a deep hole, but this is as an entry point. You could probably do this if you can.
Yeah. So guys, if you guys are interested, check out the website bulova.com. They're selling it over there. Otherwise, we will see you guys in the next video.